Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today we have a training for you on integrated pest management in action. Many of you have seen IPM in all of your paperwork and all of your mandates, and today we're taking a closer look on how you're actually going to put it in place. Acknowledgements to Larry Walker and Associates for putting together this fine and other programs, making them available to you so that you can work with us to keep the water clean and safe of pesticides. A big appreciation to all of our partner agencies for working with us. The purpose of this training module is to follow the previous one, which was Integrated Pest Management Overview. Again, however, this one is still intended to provide municipal staff or contractors who manage pests with an overview of the steps that can be used to approach a pest problem through IPM. We will be covering the IPM approach, which includes the following: identification, monitoring, action thresholds, prevention, control methods, implementation, pesticide use, and of course, the effectiveness assessment. We'll also be talking more about the IPM programs, and at the end, we have additional information for you so that you can start finding your own answers when IPM questions come up. So an overview of what IPM is, it's an ecosystem-based strategy. That means that we look at the problem as a whole, how we welcomed it, how we can identify it, how we can unwelcome it, and how we can keep these things from happening ever again, and using pesticide at the very end if we need to. We're going to look very closely at identifying who it is, monitoring who it is, establishing action thresholds. This one is really important. Preventing pests, using a combination of control methods all the way from squishing to spraying, and assessing that control method effectiveness. So let's start with identification. And first, it isn't always a pest when you see it. So for example, you're looking at the lady beetle over there on the right-hand side. We all know what that looks like. Cute, adorable, babies love it. The one on the left is the larval stage. Much more of a hairy looking little fellow. It's easy to say when you see something you don't know that it's a pest. But what we need you to do is always look it up, find out who it is, and then find out if it's a pest. And when you look it up, look at the different life stages. You'll find eggs, you'll find larvae, you'll find adults. And that's going to tell you if it's a pest, and it's going to tell you at which life stage you can make the biggest difference. And all of this is going to reduce unnecessary use of pesticides. All right, so monitoring. Take a moment with this one. We're going to be seeing something out there. We're going to go ahead and identify it, and we found out, voila, it is a pest. Let's say it's ants. We're going to routinely look for them. You can't just pick one date on the calendar and take a lookie and see if there are ants. We have to have an ongoing looking at. And we're going to find out that we're looking at different areas as well. So maybe the garage, maybe the loading dock, maybe the break room, maybe the entryway. Areas that are vulnerable to pests and pest specific. And of course, we're going to be monitoring the efficacy of the prevention and control methods we put in place. Your IPM plans will be updated in response to these monitoring results. So over time, you're going to find that the pest population might be rising, maybe over a period of days, weeks, months, or years. And at some point, it might reach that action threshold, and the action threshold is going to be when you say enough, and we're going to put a stop to it. Monitoring, record keeping. Without it, all of this is useless. It is so hard to remember or have a sense for when that pest showed up, in what numbers and in what area. And you've got a lot of people that might be adding notes to all of your record keeping. So look at all of it, and often go ahead and write down the monitoring techniques. Did you look for it? Did you smell it? Did you see it? Did you hear it? And where did you find them? Then the schedule. Some guys are only going to be a problem once a year for 2 weeks. Some guys are going to be a problem intermittently, but you're never going to see the pattern unless you have an inspection schedule. Record the monitoring results and your inspection findings, and your IPM coordinator will provide the necessary forms. Action thresholds. This one is great. One ant on the windowsill, you're going to use that IPM method and you're going to squish it. Lines and lines of ants coming in, you're going to use many IPM methods and you're going to stop them from coming in the first place. So action thresholds can vary from as little as 1 cockroach, which is always 1 cockroach too many, to how many ants you can actually tolerate when they're just wandering around and trying their luck. Knowing that the pest might be a problem on several different fronts, there is the nuisance. So if you're seeing a lot of spider webs, know that you might not have a spider problem. Those are usually just old spider webs full of dust and dirt, and they're just hanging there. That's a nuisance when you touch them and you see them. Then there is a health hazard. So cockroaches anywhere near food is a health hazard and needs to be stopped. Then, of course, there are economic threats. Think about termites. Think about rats chewing up the house. These economic threats, health hazards, and even nuisances can be handled very easily with IPM. The first thing to know once you've identified somebody is find out where it's hanging out. What conditions favor this guy becoming a nuisance or an economic threat or even a health hazard? For example, when you go outside of the building, you might see that there are rows and rows of shrubbery. And if you look closely at those bushes, you might see that just the very outer edge is green and the vast interior is nothing but dead branches. You have created by accident, but definitely created the ideal nesting spot and hiding spot for a huge number of rodents to be safe and secure, and then come in and cause problems. Look at anything that attracts them with food or water. If there are pets anywhere around, make sure that the pets are being fed on a schedule and that the food and water is being removed on a schedule. If we leave it out, we just attract everybody all the time. So food, water, and shelter. There are many control methods and they all have awesome names, but they're really simple. The first is biological. Of the insect world, for instance, 90% of the insects that are out there are considered beneficial. And that's a fancy, cute way of saying they're actually mowing down all the non-beneficial insects that are a problem. So we're going to look at how we control who's a problem without interrupting all the beneficial organisms that are out there. Cultural, there's no coincidence that there's a dripping tap on that. When the watering is not being done well outside, pests come inside. They're drowning outside because the water is going off all the time for short little bursts and it's drowning in the top inch of soil. Or you've got a little bit of dripping water, which favors all kinds of pests. Check, have your maintenance staff check on when they last updated their irrigation controllers. Have them do occasionally checks on any drip system, make sure nothing is broken, missing, or destroyed. Then there's physical. So that is when you actually kill something. And I'd like you to know that there's a myth out there that IPM says you can't kill things. That is not true. You absolutely do get to kill things, but there's a whole system for it to make sure we're only killing the guy that's a problem. So we're going to kill that pest directly, not with bombs, because that just sprays pesticide everywhere, but maybe with a trap, something that's going to target it. We're going to use screening on the outsides of the buildings of 1/4 inch or smaller mesh so mice can't come inside. And we're just going to make sure that they don't have an easy time getting in. The last one, of course, is chemical. If you've done everything else and you still need to use a chemical intervention, what that means is that chemical intervention is going to work. However, if you find that you are applying again and again and again, and your monitoring will tell you that, you have not made a big enough difference in those other steps. Implementation really hinges on 4 steps. So again, there's identifying, right? And first we're identifying if it is a pest or not, and we're going to monitor the progress of this pest. Set your action thresholds. 1 cockroach inside, no good, 0 tolerance. A few ants, okay. A few spider webs, okay, we can brush those off. Then you're going to prevent the pests from exceeding that threshold, right? And then you're going to control them. And you're going to find the right control for the right guy and put it out at the right time. And that's what IPM lets you know when you do your research. So pesticide use is all the way down at the bottom. And pesticide, by the way, is an overreaching term, overarching. It includes everything from herbicide to rodenticide. It is the #1 term. Consult your agency's IPM documentation prior to any pesticide application. As some organizations, you're municipal, you have regulations, and you do have to make notifications about what you're applying and when anybody can come into contact with it. Include that into your monitoring results. Only use it if action thresholds are exceeded and non-chemical control methods are not effective. Third, effective, less risky chemical pest controls that target that guy are chosen first. When you look at the possible pesticides that are available, if it says on the label handles 500 insects for a year, 300 insects for 6 months, 200 insects or whatever for 2 months, you probably don't want that one. You have a problem with mice, you're going to find the control for mice. You have a problem with aphids, you're going to find the control for aphids. Then broadcast spraying of a non-specific pesticide, we're really going to be exceptionally careful and avoid that. We're looking for traps, we're looking for baits, we're looking for targeted spraying, not spraying everywhere. So things like the bug bombs that you might put off in a building or in a home will spray pesticides everywhere, meaning that you're going to be sitting, working, talking, and having your lunch where there are pesticides. So avoid the sprays whenever possible and only target where you think they are. Best management practices for pesticide. Follow the label. Now, that's not only a suggestion, that is the law. The label is full of application instructions, best practices, how to mix, what ratio, and all of those things matter. If you do not follow the label, besides breaking the law, what you have done is create an environment, an opportunity for that pesticide to go find something else to do, bind into the soil, attach to water, travel hundreds of miles away from the initial point of application. You need to follow the directions. And by the way, when it says how much to mix, never do more. If it says 1 ounce to the gallon, that is the maximum amount. If you add more, you have again released a pesticide and it's going to go find something else to do, work on a non-target population, enter the water, and become a problem. Make sure that you're storing it, applying, and disposing of it safely. When you're mixing these, by the way, only mix enough that you're going to use. If you mix more than you need, you end up spraying more than you need, and you face disposal issues. Just mix as much as you need. Check the weather. There are certain times of day where it's blowing more with the wind and less. You want less wind. Check about runoff conditions. Is the irrigation scheduled to go off in a half an hour and this product won't be rain safe until 2 hours? Do you know if it's going to rain or even be a heavy mist? Sometimes you need to just wait until the opportunity is perfect, and then you get to apply. If a spill occurs, clean and report as directed. This is important. Organic or not, these things are meant to kill, persuade, and you don't want them just laying around. If there's a spill, there is a way that you need to take care of it that keeps everyone and the water safe. Never store or prepare chemicals near a storm drain, outlet, or inlet. The effectiveness assessment. So the IPM coordinator and other agency staff will be working to ensure pest control actions are effective. You may be asked to be a part of this by recording the IPM methods you and others used, by reporting the pesticide applications. You know that's not optional. Monitor the pest levels following action and help assess the effectiveness of the pest control action. So monitoring the pest levels following action. When you read the instructions or your staff reads the instructions, they're going to say, may be applied every 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years. It will say something along those lines. That is generally your clue for how long the pesticide will be active. So that also gives you the biggest clue about when to start monitoring if it was effective. So if it says you can spray every 8 to 10 days, but you monitor the effectiveness on day 1, you're going to think it didn't work. You need to give it the full amount of time. IPM programs can be a little bit daunting, perhaps a little bit overwhelming, but it really does just break down to knowledge. Find out who it is, find out if it's a pest, find out at which life cycle you get to make a difference, and identify the natural enemies. So for example, outside, if you have a lot of caterpillars, if you've got birds, they're taking care of the caterpillars, and you know to not fool with how the birds are behaving. Allow that cycle of predators to work. Prevention, fix cracks and seals in the building. Make sure that things can't come in. Remove standing water. That means also checking on irrigation for drips, breaks. Remove clutter. It's very easy in municipal operations to have stacks of wood, stacks of supplies. You might be making hiding spots for rats, spiders, all kinds of things that become a nuisance, if not a health hazard, and an economic threat. Remove those piles. Observation. We've pointed out that when you monitor matters, you're going to be monitoring before it becomes a problem, if you've had this problem before last year, how many times you see this be a problem in a year, when it happens, and locations. So you found a cockroach in the loading dock, but did you find any place else? Only write down where you found them. This is how it's going to be making IPM the most effective. Intervention, rely on all those beneficial predators that are out there. Cultural control, physical control, and chemical control as the last resort. And finally, evaluation. Keep looking, keep finding out. Did I make a difference? Did it come back in a week? Did it come back like clockwork every August? Evaluate the effectiveness. How soon did I stop it from being a problem? And did I stop it from becoming a problem next week, next month, and next year? Consult everyone, as many people as you can, and set your goals. Additional information and resources. As you start to implement IPM and you supervise the others on your staff who are starting to implement IPM, know that there are excellent resources out there for you. Particularly, we recommend University of California Integrated Pest Management site. Once you find out who it is, go to them. Find out the life cycle, the habits, the creature, everything that you can that's going to make a difference as you implement IPM. Our Water, Our World is excellent for all of the active ingredients that are in pesticides, choosing the ones that are safe for the water. The California Department of Pesticide Regulation, get to know their site, know where you can find more information when you need it. And of course, the US EPA is also full of excellent information. Even more information is available for you, especially this one from insectidentification.org. It is going to be incredibly useful as you try and ID who it is and determine whether or not it is a pest. Then their UC IPM has a wildlife pest identification tool. So you can start to find out who it is based on the tracks or the damage. And last, the UC IPM plant disease identification site. If you see problems on the plants and you're considering using some kind of chemical intervention, IDing what's going on and then finding the right intervention, because just like pests, it depends on timing and when you use things. Thank you again to all of our partner agencies. We're delighted to be with you and we enjoy this work. Thank you very much.